Welcome to the Real Personal Branding Podcast. I'm Lauren V. Davis, and I'm excited to bring you inspiring conversations with guests who share the real stuff, the personal stories, insights, celebrations, and the chaos that it took to build their authentic and powerful business. Today, we're talking about crafting a magnetic and memorable speaking business with UK conference founders and keynote speaking duo Andrew and Pete. And if you're an entrepreneur or a creative professional or looking to make a meaningful impact from stage, this episode is definitely for you. Andrew and Pete are actually the founders and creators of Atomicon, and that is the UK's largest marketing conference. But what's different about this interview, and something you might catch on to, is that we actually live streamed this interview into their Facebook group at the same time. So that means pretty much anything could happen, and we were kind of on our toes, but you'll also notice that it's totally real life. And when I'm talking to them, I am not only interested in them sharing the glossy highlight stuff, but I really want you to know what it takes to be a speaker, to go from being a speaker to having major impact and influence, and to most importantly, know that you are not alone in this. I also want you to take away practical lessons that you can apply. So today we're talking about what steps it takes to begin speaking, how to be strategic when you're pitching yourself, what conference organizers look for when they're booking speakers, and finally, some of the most important feedback tips and ideas that Andrew, Pete, and I have for upcoming speakers. And by the way, I have a professional speaker self-assessment workbook right now on my site. I have left it on sale since Black Friday until the end of December for $14. It's going to walk you through the questions you should ask yourself to get more engagement, to tell your story from stage, the key things that you should think about before, during, and after your speaking engagement. If this sounds interesting to you, you can find it by going to my website or visiting the show notes here. I would love for you to download it. And if you hear something on this podcast that you really like, will you let me know? I'm so serious about this. Like, text me, DM me, email me, smoke signal me, find me practically everywhere as L Davis Creative if we're not already connected. And just so you know, sharing this podcast episode with someone you know who would like to be a speaker is such a bonus to me. Podcasts like mine grow with people like you, with your support. So if you know someone who would like this, will you please share it online or share a screenshot or send it directly to someone? Every single time you do this, it really does mean a lot to me. Get ready for insights, tips, real world examples. I'm going to read Andrew and Pete's official bio, and then we will jump right in. My guests today are Andrew and Pete, who are the business duo who helps small business owners scale their business so they can stop swapping time for money. Founders of Atomic, they annually host one of Europe's largest business conferences, Atomicon, happening in Newcastle upon Tyne, winners of the Digital and Social Media Company of the Year Award, and also Business Personality of the Year Award. They are ranked in the top 100 digital marketers in the world. As the author of 2 hit books, The Hippocampus and Content Mavericks, they regularly keynote international conferences such as Social Media Marketing World and have been featured on sites such as Inc., Huffington Post, Social Media Examiner, Convince and Convert, Entrepreneurs on Fire, and Kim Garst. Andrew and Pete love to help solopreneurs get insanely fast results, but they also love to get creative with bigger companies and have worked with many large brands like Xero, HubSpot, Rev, Agorapulse, and Fortune 100 companies like Citigroup and American Express. Please enjoy this interview with Andrew and Pete and let me know what you think. All right, welcome Andrew and Pete. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I am so excited to have you back on the Real Personal Branding Podcast. And I would like to get started by saying what an honor it is to be friends with you through the last several years. How glad I am that we became connected that famous night after Youpreneur, and how glad and overjoyed I am that we stayed friends. And I've told you this in person, but I just really want to mirror this to you in front of your audience too, that I think it's so incredibly special to be part of anything that you guys touch, because I deeply feel how much you care about not only your business, but about your purpose and about helping businesses, about helping small businesses, which are honestly one of my favorite types of businesses to support. And I am so excited to be here today to do this with you, both as a live interview within your Facebook community. So literally anything could happen, but also for my podcast, the Real Personal Branding Podcast. All right, this is going to be fun. How do you guys feel?
Thank you,
Lauren,
so
you're gonna
much.
make us cry at the very beginning.
That's my hope.
It's our privilege and honor to be friends with you. You're awesome. So we're excited to do this interview, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. And for podcast listeners who do not know you two yet, I would love to give a little bit of background on your story. So how did you meet? How did you decide to start working together? And when and why was your company Atomic created?
All right. So me and Andrew actually met at university. We got randomly placed in the same halls of residence together, and we became just really good friends. Our eyes met across a crowded kitchen room one day as he was putting away his crunchy nut cornflakes in the kitchen on his first day. And ever since then, we've been best friends because I also really liked crunchy nut cornflakes at the time. And also, we just got on really well over our ambition to one day rule the world, as you do. And we basically became business partners. And we've been going for maybe about 13 years now. So it's been a long time, and our business has pivoted a long way since then. But one thing that we've always been passionate about is helping small business owners grow their business and do it in a way that's more scalable, gives them more freedom, that rapidly increases their income, but doesn't increase their time that they have to work. And we're all about supporting entrepreneurs. So that's kind of like us in a nutshell. And the reason why our business is called Atomic is because we believe that small businesses should be small and mighty. So much potential for each business owner to make loads of money, make impact in the world, do good, live a great life, but not have to necessarily be this multinational corporate to have any kind of happiness. So we believe that a small business is better.
Oh, I love it. And I think something that I pull out of that is that you want to create space for businesses to grow in a predictable way. So they have security. And so they have, there's so many people touting like the ability to scale and to scale things to multi 6 and 7 and 8, 9-figure businesses, a bajillion figure businesses, and the ability to give yourself security and stability while you grow and give yourself that predictability is super important. And I think what I love about the way that you teach and the methods that you teach is that it really does help businesses know how to do the things that really count. Do you have anything to say about that? Is that part of your core values?
Totally. Like there's so much crap online about passive income and scalable income and like launch a course and you'll be rich. And like we bought into that. Like when we were young and fresh in business, like we 100% were like drinking that Kool-Aid and like thinking like that's how it was. And I think as have kind of matured in business, we've realized like what doesn't work, what does work. We've realized how it's quite easy to make a lot of money, teaching people that you've got the secret to making a lot of money, but when it comes to actually, and we were working with real businesses, and I use real kind of in inverted commas there. We were working with like web designers, like photographers, graphic designers, like product-based businesses, people that had a passion. And like we were just coming up against like constant launch a course, like launch a membership, like this is how you make money online. And it's like, what if we've got like a passion? What if we're following our passion? What if we've got a skill and we want to grow our business? And a lot of like the important stuff that you need to do just like wasn't being talked about. Like, how do you actually become good at selling? Like, how do you set your pricing? How do you raise your pricing? How do you have awkward conversations with customers that aren't paying? Like, all of that stuff is like way more important than like launching a course. And people are just buying into, I can launch a course and become a millionaire overnight, when it's not actually what you want to do and probably not why you like got in business in the first place. So yeah, totally. Thank you for picking up on that. Yeah, totally singing our language there.
Yeah. And I mean, you even said, Pete, like it was about 13 years ago, and there are so many iterations that happen and so many ways that you've molded and cultivated this business over time, it's not just like, oh, I had this idea, it solves a problem, here's my elevator pitch, and now I have a really successful business. It doesn't happen like that. And I think that it's really important that you guys talk about that, and like those awkward conversations and those moments where you're like, what do I do next? I
Yes.
just, there's so much room to grow there for the small businesses. So I really appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you.
You started this business. You've created this space for small businesses, for business owners and entrepreneurs. And you then started to get your own speaking engagements and your own opportunities for speaking. Was this something that you chose to do? Did you choose to go out and become speakers, or did you start kind of getting opportunities and then you were like, I really like this and I want to do more of this? Tell me a little bit about your speaking story.
I feel like we've always just wanted to be like more well-known and famous. So we really wanted to do it from like a vanity point of view at first. But then the more we thought about it, like the more the business opportunity side of it and the more the business reason took over. So, when you go speaking, you are instantly more credible, more opportunities just fall in your lap. People buy from you much easier because they like think you're this big star and amazing, even though inside you probably don't feel it. And your audience grows and people follow you and people share your stuff and you feel great and all these amazing things happen. And also when you get good and you get some experience and you get known, like you're going to start getting paid as well. So it can become a really, really good income stream. I think at our peak, the most we ever made in a gig was about 17,000. And we haven't, due to the pandemic, we stopped speaking for a little while. So like that was like our peak before the pandemic. I felt like we could have kept going, but instead we launched our own conference. And so yes. I think what'll be interesting about this interview will be how we've tackled that from both sides. So as a speaker, what does it take to become a speaker? What does it take to get speaking gigs and how to make that work for your business? But then on the flip side, as a conference host and organizer, what do we look for now when we're choosing speakers for our own conference? Because it's really tough and it's really eye-opening as well. So I feel like, there's loads we could go into there. I'm not sure where you want us to start, but
yeah. Can I also just say as well, just to go back to that question as well, I think we both kind of approached it from different kind of angles where, like, I don't want to speak on your behalf here, Pete, but I feel like you always enjoyed the speaking part and like wanted to do it because it was like an enjoyable thing, where I have never really enjoyed speaking. I always enjoyed after the talk, like I enjoyed the fanfare and I definitely enjoyed like the ego boost and like the direct results to our business. But for me, it was more of we need to become more well known. We're seeing all of these other people doing these like talks and growing their business and their audience because of it. Like I had a more strategic, not that Pete didn't have a strategic head on, but I feel like he was actually going to enjoy the process, where I almost had to like force myself to want to do these and like push for these opportunities. So we've always had that kind of both sides of the coin as well between us.
That's so interesting. I think that really points out what makes you great business partners and great to work with each other. And I've noticed this before with you guys too, is like you both have very different strengths and they're very complementary to each other and different opinions and different purposes, but like they are all going in the same direction, And it's really cool. I could dig into that for a really long time. You said your like most highly paid speaking gig was 17,000. When was your first speaking engagement?
I remember your first speaking engagement, Pete. Do you remember your first speaking engagement?
I actually do.
I wasn't actually there at Pete's first. No, I was there, but in the audience for Pete's first speaking engagement.
I want to know.
At university, in between the second and third year, me and Andrew started a business together, and I went to the entrepreneurs department, and I basically got a speaking gig from them, but like I wanted to do it, And
Okay.
like,
I wouldn't
Andrew,
know part of it.
you weren't interested in that point. So I did it. And then afterwards, we were at this like post-speaking lunch, and the lady was like, oh, and by the way, to the other speakers, here's the £100 for the gig. And I was like, oh, I didn't know it was paid. And she was like, I'll sort you out with £100 too.
Did you get paid for that
So,
one? I did not remember you get paid for it. That's amazing.
So my first ever gig was actually paid, technically.
Wow, that's awesome.
But aside from that, me and Andrew wanted to do speaking gigs, but we didn't really have any experience. We'd spoken at we'd done a little mini workshop at networking events. You know how you can do like a 20-minute spotlight or something like that. So we did that a lot. The thing that really grew our experience speaking was we started our own networking event, and every month we did a talk. So every month we got to practice doing a talk, which was cool. And then eventually we reached out and pitched to like a local event that was like a little bit bigger. We did that. And then we went to a social media marketing world in America, and we were blown away because we were really, really locally small-minded at that point. Like we wanted to run an empire, but we were like just boxed into this like local mindset and local networking and things like that. And when we went to this event, we saw how all these amazing people were making loads and loads of money online. We were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like our minds were just blown. But we saw all these people speaking and we were like, we want to do that. So we applied to speak there and we got turned down. And then we went again the year after and we applied to speak again and they turned us down. And we went the year after and we applied to speak again and they turned us down.
Yeah.
3 years in a row. And then they actually were like, hey, actually, we've got a space. Like, do you want to do the gig? So we ended up speaking at that event. And that was probably one of our biggest speaking. Like, that was probably our first official, proper conference, if that makes sense.
It's like, people are often surprised by that because social media marketing world's such a big conference, but we set our sights on it and we were like, we want to speak at that one. So yes, we had done all the local networking stuff, but the first proper gig, in our eyes, with a stage with microphones that are on your head was the social media marketing world in 2016. 2016.
Wow.
Yeah. So we ended up speaking at that event, I think 3 or 4 times in a row. And on the 3rd time, we actually got to keynote that event as well.
Yeah.
In front of 5,000 people, which was very exciting.
I was there. I got to see that one.
Scary.
That was awesome. I ran around, took a few pictures of you guys, I think, actually.
Oh, thank you. Funny. That was by far, I think, the scariest we've ever been, or most nervous for any gig. But
yeah.
The thing about all that though is there's so many free speaking gigs that you can do, and there's a degree at which you can build up, or you can try to go straight to the top, make a statement. And what me and Andrew have always tried to do is jump there. We just want to leapfrog all that middle ground because that's hard work. So the fact that we got that speaking gig, we were able to leverage that because we could say it's the biggest social media marketing event in the world. And if we're speaking at that, that's the top people in the world. So we're more than worthy of speaking at your event and getting paid for it. So we basically use that as leverage to go speak at other events and get paid for that. And then when we keynoted it, we massively increased our fees at that point. So I think a takeaway here is a lot of people will pitch for smaller events first and try to build up. And our mindset is do everything you can to get that bigger event. And then all the other events at that level are easier to get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's an easier route. It's initially harder, but it is a good, like, for example, to speak at Social Media Marketing World, they had 5 criteria, which was like, you have to have a book, like you have to have your own content, like a YouTube channel or a podcast series. You have to be known by our audience, and there's like 5 criteria. So we did all those 5 things. We were like, we want to speak there. To do that, we have to write a book. So we wrote a book in 3 months. We wrote a book. We just got it done, self-published, boom, launched. We launched a YouTube channel, started publishing videos every week. We wrote blogs for their website and got on their podcast. And like all of a sudden, that just transformed things. So like, I don't know, it's just something to consider. Like if you want to do speaking, go big and do the things that conference is like looking for, you know? Don't just think, oh, like I'm just gonna pitch and just because I'm me, I'm gonna get it. Like you need to have what they're looking for.
I have so much, oh my gosh, I have so many ideas coming from what you just said. So just to kind of share this back to you is that you wanted to become a speaker. And so you took the step to basically create your own thing. You know, you created your own space for people and spoke in front of them every month. Yes. And yes, you wanted to get that big event, that big one to like use as leverage, as reputability and credibility factor. But you didn't just pitch and expect to get results. You actually paid attention to what they needed you to what they needed you to do in order to be at that event. You did the work. You wrote a freaking book and published a book. You created a YouTube channel and a platform. That kind of stuff takes time and energy and resources. And I think so many times people think that they can put in a weekend and then start pitching themselves as a speaker.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, like some people can if they've already got that.
If they have that kind of work or already done and those kind of resources and stuff already done, I still don't think they can put in a weekend. Like I still think that sometimes people get lucky for sure. I don't think it's as overnight as some people want it to be, and even we all want it to be, right? And so you just said like, we jumped for this big thing, but you actually didn't quite jump. You actually took like a lot of strategic steps to get there. You paid attention to what was needed and what the instructions were. And then you said, okay, you need this. We're going to do it then. Like, we're going to have it ready. And you can't, like, we're going to do all the things you said. And here we are, And so I just want to put that in perspective because that's so important, right? Especially because we're going to talk, after I talk about the speaker part, we're going to talk about organizing your own conference and what goes into that. But I also wanted to say that seems like there's about 8 years or 10 years even in between that first larger speaking gig and where you are right now.
Yeah. So as a timeline, it was almost like we spent a good few years doing local networking and stuff like that. We went to this event and that's when we took it seriously. Like, okay, wow, like there's events like this. Like, this is huge. We want to speak at events like this. And within I remember this, we worked it out. From going to the event, 18 months it took us to get the yes.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was 18 months of like a lot of work and pitching and writing the book and starting the YouTube channel and trying to be on their podcast and things like that until we actually got the yes for the year after, obviously. So like, yes, it took us a long time. From that point to get that first gig to then getting larger gigs, that was much quicker. To get to the point where you go from like the odd gig to getting a lot of gigs, that's different. And that also depends on, that can take years. Yeah. But that also depends on how good you are at speaking and how well known you are and how much you pitch as well, how proactive you are.
And I would say how much you engage with your audience and how much how you engage with your conference organizers and
Yeah.
how referable you make yourself. That would be one of the things that I think is so important. So,
Yeah.
what do you think is one of the best tips that you ever received while you were in this like moment where you were like, okay, I'm trying to get we're trying to get more speaking engagements now. What was one of the best tips you ever received that you'd like to share?
The best thing that we ever did was we were being paid around like £2,000 a gig, maybe a bit more, plus
Mhm.
expenses, like if we were lucky. And we spoke at Content Marketing World, which is another huge conference, like 5,000 people. We were just on like the breakout tracks. But we kind of felt like we were plateauing at that kind of like breakout level. We can get like £2,000. We wanted to be paid like 5 figures plus.
Mm.
And we saw Drew Davis speak at that conference, Content Marketing World, and he just kind of blew our socks off. Like it was the best talk we had seen ever, like hands down. Like nothing came close to it. And we actually met him there's a bit of a story here, but we met him in the queue to meet Tina Fey at that conference. He was just in front of us and we were like egging each other on. We were like, oh my God, there's Drew Davis. He'd just blown
Yeah.
our socks off like a few hours before. Like, go tell him like how good he was.
Yeah.
So we went up to him and we said, like, Drew, like your talk was by far the best thing we've ever seen. Like, how do we get that good? Like, we want to get that good. And he was so kind to us. And he essentially said, send me the recording of this gig that you've just done, Content Marketing World. I'll tell you how to improve. And long story short, he kind of taught us how to think bigger, not in terms of like the gigs we were pitching for, but like the transformation we wanted to deliver to the audience.
Mm.
So we were very, to use his words, expertville at the time. It was like 5 steps to do this, how to grow your
Got it.
following on X platform, how to be more creative, how to do whatever. And like his talks that he was being paid, like what we wanted to be paid for, to like keynote all over the world, were, in his words, visionary. So it wasn't just, I'm going to teach you what to do. It was, I'm
Mhm.
going to teach you how to think differently about this problem. So he helped us put together our first visionary talk, which was the 90-10 rule. And that kind of started as a problem that we wanted to solve. Like, why are small businesses creating such boring content? And he got us to do like this whole research piece where we like really dug deep into like the actual problem. And like we came up with like the underlying problems, which was essentially like people don't have time to be creative. Why don't they have time to be creative? Because they're actually spending their time like trying to create content on like 5 different platforms. And like we started looking at all the different content success stories and like why did they become so big? And like what we found out was they weren't actually trying to do 5 things. They were trying to do like one thing really well, scale that up, repeat it on different platforms. And that was kind of the whole concept of the 90-10 rule. It wasn't, this is how to create great content. It was, this is how you need to change your thinking around the content you're creating to be more
Mm.
remarkable, to get the bigger wins. And we delivered that talk for the first time at Upreneur.
Yes.
And like
That's where I met you guys.
That's where we met you, right?
That
Yeah.
conference.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 And like from that point on, our speaking career just up leveled. So like Jay Bear was in the audience for that. He was also speaking at that event. And like he came up to us and he said, guys, that was absolutely mind blowing. I've just texted Mike Stelzner. You need to keynote Social Media Marketing World. So that's how we like got that gig. Every
Yeah.
single time we did like that talk and talk similar, we got more referrals for like bigger and
Mhm.
bigger gigs. We got more social shares. We got like, oh my God, like, have you seen that? Like me and Pete are quite competitive. So like our goal was always, how do we be the most memorable speaker on this lineup? Even before when we were doing Expertville talks, we were trying to do that. But like this kind of unlocked that for us, like because we were like gimmick based before, like we would like do something really fun. We would like throw beach balls into the crowd. We would
Yeah.
like, I mean, there's 2 of us and Pete's in a wheelchair, so we always had a little bit of an advantage there of being memorable. But like we always doubled down on that. But when we actually became to tried to be memorable based on what we were teaching, that unlocked bigger opportunities, more money per gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That really got our demand up, which allowed us to increase our prices. And we went from like $2,000 to 10 grand and then upwards to 15. And then eventually we started pitching like 30K. But that was the biggest shift for us. Like, you've got the pivotal first one to get the leverage to get all these other gigs. And then you've got that amazing keynote, which then becomes a keynote. So as a keynote speaker, rather than a breakout speaker, you're automatically going to get paid more and more respect, bigger audiences. And so everything went up from that moment. And another thing Drew said, just along the lines of that, is that you're going to get the most referrals, like, from gigs. Like, gigs lead to more gigs.
Yes.
And if you're not getting more gigs from the ones that you're doing, like, the talk isn't good enough, basically. Like, that's your biggest asset to get more. Like, how good are your talks? And also, just like, final point on that, like, this was not easy. So me and Andrew spent at least 2 or 3 hours a day for 3 months solid working on that talk. And Drew was there going like, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Do it again, redo that. It's not hitting. Do this differently. Like, every day, like, I mean, it was epic. And I'm not saying people have to do it that intensely, but just that if you want to create a remarkable talk that will get you more gigs at a higher price and more keynotes, like, you do have to create a really good talk. It's not just like one day you're going to sit down and spend an hour. You're going to create a little presentation that's like 5 steps to doing X, Y, Z, and you're going to be golden, you know?
You know what most people do wrong with the talks? They try to put too much in. Like, we see that time and time again. Like, when we go to other events, like, now we've done it ourselves, like, we can see what's wrong or how we would improve talks. And like, most of the time, we're sat in an audience at an event thinking they're trying to say too much in this talk to actually make this talk good and valuable. Like, that part might be like really good, but they've spent like 2 minutes on this and they've got like their 12-part step process that they need to like talk us through in half an hour. And you just like don't have time in half an hour to do that. So like, our goal of talks these days, how do we change in a bigger way, like a one big takeaway that isn't just a tactical takeaway? It's a, how do we change the way the audience is thinking about this problem? Because that leads to so many more different takeaways for the attendees.
Yeah, and my package that I work with speakers on is actually called the memorable speaker, because that is one of the most important things that you can do is be memorable. And also, to echo, your next speaking engagement is always in the audience. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are the conference organizer, but they might be sitting on a board of directors. They might be the person who makes that call and says, you got to have them keynote. Your next speaking engagement is always sitting in the audience. And I just think that some of the things that you just mentioned are so important. And I wish I could have, I wanted to jump in like 1,000 times, but I was also like, no, let them talk, Lauren, let them talk. I think that what you did by having someone review your presentation is also one of the best things you can do. It's what I spend a majority of time on with my clients, like, is reviewing their presentation and looking for those places where engagement is possible, where there's opportunities to connect with people, and it's not like the obvious subtle, like, here, follow me on Instagram. It's not like that, but it's like creating those subtle opportunities for people to say, I have to keep this person in my life somehow. I have to, you're not just a person on stage anymore. You're like someone that they want to keep around. And like, they want to have this relationship with you, right?
I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
so
awesome.
Let's talk about building a conference and how you two hire speakers. So one of the things that I think is so important, like I just said, is how you engage with the audience, how you engage with the conference organizers before, during, and after an event. From the speaker's perspective, there are obviously things that speakers can do to engage and ensure that they would be invited back or that they would have positive feedback. And I know you guys have that knowledge as speakers, but now you also have this knowledge as conference organizers. You host Atomicon, which has around 1,000 attendees, over 1,000 attendees. It has grown so much in the last couple of years that you've had it. It is like when Atomicon week is happening, everyone is talking about it. Everyone I know that cares about it is talking about it. They're either talking about the virtual version, they're talking about the in-person version. I was lucky enough to be able to host your virtual networking parties last year. That was really fun. What we also have in common is that I'm also a speaker like you guys, and I also hosted a conference in Illinois for about 13 years. We hosted a couple a year. It was a more mid-sized conference. It was like a little bit smaller. It wasn't 1,000 people. It was more like 300 people. And it was also for small business owners, right? And so I like that we get to kind of geek out about the organization pieces of planning a conference and everything that goes on in the background. But I was wondering, what are some of the things that if you are just starting out and you are building your talk and you've been practicing your talk for hours, but you know that you're not on an organizer's radar yet, what are some of the things that you think you can do as a speaker to kind of get on your radar as organizers? Maybe not necessarily for your event, but just give some advice on like how people go from not known to being to having you guys go, I wonder if they would be a good speaker for this event.
It's really a good question. I think like generally speaking first, not just Atomicon, you can ask the organizer. No one ever thinks to do that. Like a lot of the organizers will tell you like what they're looking for. And like we've booked speakers that have literally come into our inbox and said like, hey guys, I'd love to speak. I've got a couple of questions that I would love to ask you about Atomicon, just like make sure I'm the right fit, make sure, and just to find out a bit about what you're looking for. Some people will have content on their site, like Social Media Marketing World. They would do a talk every year at Social Media Marketing World. I don't know if they still do it, but like when we first started going, no, it was like how to speak at this event, where they like gave us that list of things. We have a blog on our website which like gives you the list of things that you can do to speak at Atomicon or kind of what we're looking for. Generally speaking, to get like on a person's radar, well, to get on our radar, like we want people that like know how to speak. Like that's really important for us. It's not important for every event organizer, but I think the bigger events, it is an important part. Like we want evidence that you've spoken. Like we ask for video evidence of you speaking on the stage, not like a Zoom presentation, not a virtual presentation. Like we want you to actually see what you're like on stage. We love it if you're creating content. Like with our selfish hat on as event organizers, like we want to be able to sell tickets. And people often think we mean like we're looking for people that have got like 100,000 followers or like are super famous. And yes, like that does help, but like it's like we know we're not looking at every one of our speakers isn't going to have like 100,000 followers on Instagram.
Right.
We are looking for people that have got an engaged audience, though, not just because you'll bring people, but because it means that what you've got to say, like people enjoy hearing,
Yes.
like if you can get comments, if you can get likes, if you can get like build a small engaged following, to us, that's like a really good sign. If you're creating content that no one cares about, it's not a big tick in your box to speak at our event.
Yeah.
Do you want to
it's like when people choose the speakers, it's a representation of the conference and it reflects back on the conference owners. So we try really hard to get people who are like recognized as one of the top experts in that area of expertise that we're trying to fill as a slot. So we've got like topics to fill and we need to have like the best experts for each topic. If we don't, then that's going to reflect badly on us. Like, it's like, well, who the hell are these people? I don't know these people. If I check them out online, they're not that well followed, then that's going to be a tough sell. You can still overcome that if you're like really awesome at what you do. You've got a really specific skill that we want to highlight to our audience. things like that. Being nice to us, and that sounds like really weird, but that's really important. And especially if we say no initially. So, like, for example, I said before, we got turned down 3 times for social media marketing world, right? Sometimes people will pitch to us like completely cold out of the blue, and they will say like, "Oh, sorry, you weren't successful. If you want feedback, let us know." We'll give them feedback if they ask, and a lot of people don't take that very well.
No,
like at all. And it completely 100% ruins the chance of speaking at a conference ever, or ever recommending them for other conferences. Now, there's people that have reached out and we're like, you know what, this year, maybe not, but they're on our radar and we want to keep following them. And actually, they're a really good shout for maybe a future year or something else that we're doing completely. Or we could recommend them for another conference, right? That they might be a better fit for or whatever. So first of all, get on the conference organizers' radar, like follow them on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever they post content. Become a part of the community if you can, give value. Be nice to that person, get known in their community. If they have a podcast, if they have a channel, if they do webinars, like get in on that. And that's the easiest way. If you're not super well known, if you don't have a massive audience, if you don't have a book, all that kind of stuff, just getting on that conference organizer's radar is probably like the best way to go to start with. That's the thing that you can like hustle and do. And then you get on the conference organizer's radar. And when it's time for them to apply or choose speakers, then you're in front of mind, as it were. Like it is literally a case of like who you know.
Yeah.
We do a lot of research and we look for different speakers that we don't know, and we're always keeping our eyes open. But at the end of the day, if me and Andrew are like following someone or reading someone that is like giving value in our community or commenting on our stuff, or we keep seeing them pop up and we really like what they're doing and it fits the bill, like they've got a good chance, you know?
Yeah. I know some organizers are very stringent with whether they should have been an attendee first. Me and Pete aren't like that. So we're not like, you have to have come to Atomicon, you have to have met us to be a speaker. I feel like that would cut our nose off to spite our face, to be honest, if we like said that was a rule. I do think it's helpful. Like if there is an event that you really want to speak at, like going to the event, like seeing what it's about, hopefully introducing yourself to the organizer. It's always helpful.
Yeah. And I guess I want to also say, from my point of view as an organizer at my own type of event, I wonder how you guys feel about this. So I'd love to hear your thoughts too. I worked really hard at determining what my audience needed, because they were in a very specific place. They were local business owners, like hyper local business owners, who felt like taking a day off to come to a conference, their whole business was going to burn down if they left. You know, like that's, some local business owners feel like that. And I get it. Because I had a local business. I owned a record store for 16 years. I get it. And so I had to be very clear about making sure that the speakers I was hiring to come speak at my event were going to speak the language that my audience needed from them in a way that they could understand. Not like, yes, lots of principles apply to everyone, but they needed to be able to talk to local business owners and to think about their presentations from the eyes of a local business owner and what they could adapt and pick up on. And for me, when I turn that around and look at it backwards, I say, as a speaker, I need to be super clear that what I'm speaking about and how I'm pitching myself matches up with the audience that these people are serving. So if I'm a speaker applying to Atomicon, I need to be really clear about the audience that is in Atomicon. So that way I can make sure that my talk and what I'm pitching and the bullet points that I'm providing align very clearly and very well with the audience. It's almost like pitching a podcast. It's like pitching anything, right? Can you
Yes.
talk about that a little bit and your perspective on that?
Like we totally have with the exact same thought process. This is actually why I sometimes think it can even be easier going for like the big conferences that have hundreds of speakers. Because like for Atomicon, for example, we have going into deciding on the lineup, we have first and foremost the list of topics that we want to cover. We've got the list of topics, and then we've got the list of speakers that we would really love. We've got the list of people that have applied, and then it's just like this impossible like game, like jigsaw game, where we try to like match up, make sure we have like the right mix of speakers from from different types of backgrounds that are covering the right sorts of topics. And it's quite difficult for Atomicon. So if you're pitching as something very specific, like if you're pitching SEO, we don't just have to decide, hey, is SEO more important than these other topics? But also this other person's pitched SEO. And because we have limited space, you're now almost in a competition with this other person that also does SEO. So that's why when we say no, or like not yet, but maybe for future, like oftentimes, well, like if we would say that to you, like we actually do mean that. And like it's usually just something like we can't make that work because we've already got a speaker that we've asked and they said yes on that specific topic. So topic is really important when you're pitching, but also your online presence. So we get pitched all the time and we'll go onto their website and like the first thing it says is like, I help leaders of Fortune 500 companies like do XYZ, you know? And like that's just an instant no for us. Like it doesn't matter like how good the rest of the pitch is. Like that's a no, that's an audience disconnect. And we'll go back and they'll ask for feedback and we'll tell them it's because like the audience is misaligned. And they always come back, like 9 times out of 10, they'll come back and say, oh, but I can also talk about this. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter at that point because not only is it not a perfect fit, but from anyone that is thinking about coming to Atomicon, like you're going to check out the lineup, see who's speaking. If the first website you go onto is someone that isn't even speaking to your problems in the content on the homepage of the website, then like that's not good as event organizers. And I don't think it's good for you as a speaker either, to be honest. Like pitching for an event that's so far outside of like what your homepage says who you want to work with. So yeah, topic
it's
is
not like it's not like a qualified audience for you that makes sense for you. No,
because we have like limited amount of speakers, like we have like 24 speaking slots, for example, it's really hard for us to just say yes to multiple people per topic. So I think if you're starting out, you might actually have more success pitching for bigger events where they have like 50 to 100 or 200 speakers, right? Because they have a little bit more wiggle room to just accept people that maybe aren't as well known, but could be really good, just to give them a chance. Right. They're going to have their well-known speakers, going to have their celebrity speakers, then they're going to have the regulars that you're going to perform. And then they can take a risk on a few people. And for us, that's what we were for like social media marketing world. We were like the new guys, didn't have a big audience at that point at all. Like, they might be rubbish, but let's give them a go. They seem nice. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So I just realized the time. We are winding down at the end of this interview. I am so thankful for all of this information that you have shared, because I really feel like this is a great, and I can't speak for everyone watching or listening, but I feel like this is the kind of conversation I would have loved to listen to when I was first starting my pitching and speaking career and getting booked for more engagements. I really wish that I could have listened to a conversation behind the scenes like this with conference organizers who have also actually done the work of being a speaker, of being strategic, of working backwards, of creating something special and meaningful, like you guys have with Atomicon. Let's talk about the addition of Fringe Day at Atomicon this year, because this opened up the ability for you to have several more speakers who are giving workshops versus sessions, right? Workshops versus talks, which is a little bit different. It's definitely a lot different. I am lucky and grateful to be one of those workshop hosts. I'm really excited about my workshop, right? But talk about the addition of Fringe Day this year. like why you're creating it, who should attend, what attendees of Atomicon should attend these French Day events. And then we can talk a little bit about the workshop too.
I think for us, the buzz at Atomicon is so awesome, the vibe's so amazing, and everyone just always wants more. And this year we wanted to add in the workshops. We wanted to give people a little bit more because some people want to come up a little bit earlier. Pretty much everyone comes up earlier anyway, day before or even 2 days before, just to like chill out and explore and meet people. And we have pre-parties and meetups, and we thought, why not give the opportunity to have a little bit more extra value while you're here? So we put on these additional workshops, and we really think these are going to create some really big breakthroughs for people that want to really grow and are ambitious. So if people are listening to this and they want to do more speaking gigs, they want to get paid for speaking gigs, they want to use that to leverage and earn more in their business, then definitely want to check out Lauren's workshop, because it's going to be in depth. Like with a talk, you're going to learn, which is fantastic. And in a workshop environment, you get to actually do and talk and brainstorm and mastermind. And actually in your workshop, like you're going to be getting people to like actually do some live experience, right? On the talk, how they present themselves, and also like get into the nitty gritty of how do you pitch? What do you say? How do you go about it? What does that first email look like? How do I start approaching these people? And I think that is just so invaluable. So if you're listening to this, if you're coming to Atomicon, if you just heard about Atomicon for the first time at conference, definitely check it out, atomic.site /Atomicon. And then the day before, we've got our fringe days. So that's our meetups and workshops. You'll see Lauren's smiling face on there, and you can go check it out and book onto that workshop as well. It's going to be absolutely amazing. I feel like we should have been the ones interviewing you in this, the other way around. This is your bag, this is your expertise. But I have enjoyed talking about all this stuff with you today as well. So.
Well, having some expertise there really allows me to ask the questions I know that people want to know. And also, I know you guys feel like this and I feel like this. Even when you become a quote unquote expert at what you do, you always feel like a beginner when you're a lifelong learner, no matter how many social media marketing worlds you speak at or how many Atomicons you speak at, there's something that you feel a beginner in. Like there's something you still feel new at, right? And so those feelings will never go away from me. Like I will always think about the first time I got asked to speak, or the first time that I hosted an event, and the feeling I had afterwards where I was like, holy crap, I got to do this again.
Yeah.
Like,
who am I to
do
this? Who am I to be on the stage? Like, we get that every time as well. Like
every time.
So it's nice to hear that you also hear that as well.
Oh yeah. I hear it from my clients who, make $25,000 a speaking engagement. They still feel like, why, like, what do I not have? Like, do I have some, I don't have what this person has, or like, I don't they're still saying that. And I'm like, it's a thing that everyone feels. You're not alone when you feel like that. And I think the important thing is to know that sometimes people feel that way and they still continue to put in the work and the strategy and like think through those dots, fill in the dots. And some people feel that way and then they don't. They say, maybe this isn't for me. I'm never going to be good enough. And I think if there's a testament to what you guys have created and built, it's that you keep iterating, you keep swinging. If something doesn't work, you work on something different, and you give it time. You give it time to see if it will work too.
Yes.
I love that. And almost like as a perfect like little roundup there, one of our speakers, Lisa Bielu, has a really great saying that confidence comes as the byproduct of taking action. So it's not about having confidence and then taking action. It's about taking action regardless of the fact that you're absolutely terrified. And because you've done that, you gain the confidence. And I think that's a really nice message for people to take home that kind of summarizes that feeling that you have about pitching to speak, like no one's ever going to feel good enough. Like if you're umming and ahhing about taking Lauren to workshop or hiring Lauren as well, because you might not feel like you're good enough. Like, who am I to be like this paid speaker? Like, just remember, like, confidence comes after you take action, not before it.
Yeah. And confidence by those who study it is the degree to which you securely think and feel your actions will achieve a positive impact. So as you continue to put yourself in these situations where you securely know that you will make a positive impact, your confidence will grow. And I think one way you can do that is by telling your story on stage.
Yes.
I love that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I don't know if it looks like we have any questions for Q&A.
There was one there from Luke. If you have questions, I think we're about 10 to 20 seconds behind the live feed. So if anyone does have any questions, then please do get them. Luke was asking, do you guys vet the talks at Atomicon first? We vet some of the talks. We offer it to every speaker, like if they want to run through it with us. Like a lot of our speakers we are very confident in, like we've vetted them before we've said yes to them. We do have a lot of conversations because we've got like so many speakers. I think it would be impossible to like help every single one write the talk, but there are a few speakers who we will run through the talks with, get them with a top level with. It's important for us that the talks are right and go well.
Yeah. I love that. That's super important. All right. Any other questions here? We have a lot of affirmations in the chat, which is very kind. You know, words of affirmation are that's my love language. So thank you guys. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing people at Atomicon. The link is in the chat. I will put the link for the podcast into our show notes for you to join for Fringe Day, which is the day that I will be teaching a workshop. And then for Atomicon, the conference, which happens the following day. And I am so excited. I can't wait to see you guys in person.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, Lauren, for that. That was amazing. Yeah. We cannot wait to see you in June on our side of the pond.
Yay! Yes. I know.
Thank you to everyone listening as well. I hope you've enjoyed that. And if you've got any questions, please do come reach out to us and message us. We're nice people. We'll say hello back. So it'd be good to hear from you as well.
If you are watching on the replay as well, feel free just to like post a brand new question into the group. Happy to like. Yes, Lauren's in the group as well, so Lauren can chip in.
Yeah, we can all jump in and answer those questions as they come to you. So.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Real Personal Branding Podcast with Andrew and Pete. Here are a couple things I wanted to pull out and highlight for you. First, building a speaking career doesn't happen in a weekend. It takes time, energy, effort, maybe even a little strategy. 2, paying attention to the audience that the conference is serving and building meaningful relationships with event organizers. Oh my gosh, so important. And 3, feedback and coaching on delivery and engagement can be instrumental. Of course, I can help you with this. If you're interested, you know where to find me. What did you think about this episode? I would love to hear from you. Did you like it? Let me know so I can continue bringing you more like this. Every time you give me positive feedback on an episode, I know, hey, this is what you want to hear. I'm going to bring you more. Come find me on Instagram or LinkedIn at ldaviscreative and let's have a real conversation about this and be real friends. And if you love learning about personal branding, please join me in my free Facebook group called Personal Branding and Social Media for Entrepreneurs. And can you do me a favor? If you like this podcast, if this feels like it resonated with you, you got a lot out of it, would you consider subscribing or reviewing it? Personal branding is not just about promotion and marketing, but it's about creating genuine connection and building relationships. It's about the balance and harmony of your life and what you want, and it's about who you are and how you carry that through the world. I would love to stay connected to you in this way. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Real Personal Branding Podcast. I can't wait for next time.